Random House Audio presents Love and Other Impossible Pursuits by Ayelet Waldman, read for you by Reilly. Usually, if I duck my head and walk briskly, I can make it past the playground at West 81st Street. I start preparing in the elevator, my eyes on the long brass arrow as it ticks down from the 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th floor. Sometimes the elevator stops, and one of my neighbors gets on, and I have no choice but to crack the carapace of my solitude and pretend civility. If it's one of the younger ones, the guitar player with the brush of red hair and the peeling skin, say, or the movie executive in the rumpled jeans and the buttery leather coat, it's enough to muster a polite nod of the head. The older ones require more. The steel-haired women in the self-consciously bohemian dresses, folds of purple peeping from under the hems of black wool capes, demand conversation about the weather, or the spot of wear on the oriental carpet runner in the lobby, or the front page of the arts section. That is quite nearly too much to bear, because don't they see that I am busy? Don't they realize that obsessive self-pity is an all-consuming activity that leaves no room for conversation? Don't they know that the entrance to the park lies right next to the 81st Street playground, and that if I am not completely prepared, if I do not clear my mind, stop my ears to all sounds other than my own breathing, it is entirely possible, likely even, that instead of striding boldly past the playground with my eyes on the bare gray branches of the trees, I will collapse outside the playground gate, the shrill voices of the children keening in my skull. Don't they understand, these ladies with their petitions and their dead banker husbands and bulky Todd's purses, that if I let them distract me with talk of Republicans stealing elections, or whether Mrs. Katz from 2B saw Anthony, the new doorman, asleep behind the desk last Tuesday night, I will not make it past the playground to the refuge of the park beyond. They will force me instead to trudge along the 79th Street transverse, pressed against the grimy stone walls, inhaling exhaust fumes from crosstown buses, all the way to the east side. Or worse, they will force me to take a cab. Today, thank God, the elevator is empty all the way to the lobby. "Have a nice walk, Mrs. Wolfe," Ivan says as he holds the door open for me. That started the day after our wedding. The first few times, I tried to explain that I was still Miss Greenleaf. I know Ivan understood. He's not an idiot. But he merely smiled and nodded and said, "Of course, Miss Greenleaf," and then greeted me with a "Good morning, Mrs. Wolfe," the next day. Today I smile, nod, and walk out the door and across the street to the park. February is the longest month of the year. Winter has been on us for so very long, and spring seems like it might never come. Normally I hunker down. I build fires in the fireplace, wrap myself in chenille throws and wool socks, reread Jane Austen, and will the short, dark days to creep by more quickly. This year, however, I long to embrace the unrelenting grimness of New York in February. This year, I need February. Even now, at the end of January, it is as if the city has noticed my dejection and proceeded to prove its commiseration. The trees in the park seem particularly bare. They poke at the dreary sky with lifeless branches that have lost not just their leaves, but the very hope of leaves. The grass has turned brown and been kicked away, leaving a mire covered by a scrim of dog-shit spotted ice. The bridle path and the path along the reservoir are muddy and have buckled in places, gnarled roots and knots marring the once smooth surfaces and tripping up the fleece-clad runners. But the Diana Ross playground is full of children. New York children will play outside in all weather, except the most inclement, their nannies and mothers desperate to escape the confines of even the most spacious apartments. I quicken my step until I am galumphing along at an ungainly jog, my extra weight pounding into my widened hips, my bones aching with every jarring thump of heel to path. I allow myself to slow to a gasping walk as soon as the children's voices fade into the background hum of the rest of the park. In the summer, Central Park sounds like the countryside, or a version of the countryside where birdsong competes with the hiss of skateboard wheels on cement. In the spring, when the cherry trees are in full blush and the hillocks around Sheep Meadow are covered in yellow daffodils, it is easy to love Central Park. In the summer, when the Shakespeare Garden is a tangle of blossoms and wedding ceremonies, and you cannot walk 2 feet without stumbling over a bank of asters or a dog playing frisbee, loving Central Park is a breeze. In the winter, though, the pigeons fly under the naked elms, keeping close to where the conscientious, lonely old ladies with their paper bags of bread crusts congregate on the snow-dampened benches of the mall. In the winter, the park is left to those of us whose love is most true, those of us for whom snow-heavy black locust trees, mud-covered hills, and the sound of the wind creaking through bare branches are enough. I have always understood that it is in the escape provided by these 843 acres that real beauty lies. The pastel Mardi Gras of spring and summer and the brilliant burnt reds and oranges of autumn are just foo-for-ah. I cut north to the trail along the reservoir. There is one more playground in my path, but it is far enough away that I can keep my eyes averted from the Lincoln log play structure and the red and yellow slide. It is late for the mommies with jogging strollers, and if my luck holds, I will miss them entirely. Last Wednesday, I left a couple of hours early to meet a friend who had decided that a morning of shoe shopping would bounce me out of my despondency, would turn me back into someone whose company she enjoyed. Mindy did not, of course, say that. Mindy said that her husband had given her a pair of Manolo Blahniks for her birthday, in the size she had led him to believe that she wore, and she needed to see if the store carried the shoe in a 10.5. On that day, I came upon a whole row of new mothers crouched down in back of their strollers, their postpartum padded behinds thrust out, their hands gripping the handles as they rose up to their toes and then squatted back down, cooing all the while to their well-bundled infants who squawked, laughed, or slept in $750 strollers, bugaboo frogs, just like the one parked in the hallway outside our apartment, next to the spindly table with the silk orchids. The blue denim bugaboo that kicks me in the gut every time I stand waiting for the elevator. They squatted and rose in unison, this group of mommies, and none of them said a word when I stopped in front of them and grunted as if I'd been punched. They looked at me and then back at each other, but no one spoke. Not when I started to cry, and not when I turned and ran back along the path, past the first playground and then the second, and then back out onto Central Park West. Today I am lucky. The mommies have stayed in, or are sharing a post-workout latte. At 90th Street, having made it safely and sanely across the park, I look at my watch. Shit, I am late, again, with only 5 minutes to make it up to 92nd and then all the way across to Lex. I quicken my pace, pinching my waist against the stitch in my side. It is not until I run around the white fence barriers and the cement planters, show my ID card at the security desk, pass through the metal detector, and am shifting from foot to foot in front of the bank of elevators, that I remember that I have set my watch forward 15 minutes for this very reason, so I will not be late again, so that Carolyn will not have yet another reason to call Jack and berate him for my capricious negligence, my disregard for her and all she holds sacred. I feel myself deflate, as if the only thing keeping me buoyant was my agitation and anxiety. By the time the elevator arrives, I am tiny. I am shrunken to the size of a mouse. I am the smallest person in the 92nd Street Y. A claque of women follows me into the elevator. 2 are pregnant. 1 holds a baby strapped to her chest in a black leather Baby Bjorn infant carrier. The last pushes a bugaboo stroller identical to the one parked outside my apartment, because of course the irony is that for all my expertise as the preeminent cartographer of a child-free Central Park, my very destination is into the belly of the beast. My goal, my journey's end, is the 92nd Street Y nursery school. All this fecundity would have stopped me dead in my tracks had I stumbled upon it in the park. Central Park is my refuge, and its invasion by the baby brigade enrages and devastates me. At the preschool, however, I am used.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?